2, 3. Call our meeting to order tonight. Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started on everything, I need to do a little quick housekeeping thing. I need to, in order to achieve a quorum for both Syosset Valley Fire and Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, I need to temporarily appoint tonight one of the members of the SVFR board to the WLFEA board, so we have a quorum for both. And I've given this a lot of thought as to who I should choose. You're kidding. And it's Alan Burns. Sam, would you like to do this? You've been deferred to Sam, so Sam will be our quorum for WLFEA. That's what we were saying.
Okay. Can we do roll call to establish a quorum?
For Western Lane, Director Yesman.
Here.
Director Russell. Here. Director Farnsworth.
Here.
Director Webb.
Here.
Director Murphy. For Syosset Valley, Director Green. Director Hickson.
Here.
Director Burns.
Yes, here.
Director Polisi. And Director Spade.
Here.
For Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, we have Director Yesman.
Here.
Director Director Farnsworth.
Here.
Director Green. And Director Hickson.
Yes, and Director Spade will be
Director Spade.
Okay, and next is approval of our agenda, and right now we have quorum for all three bodies, and you have the agenda in front of you. Any questions, additions, or requests for changes? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Western Lane?
So moved.
Second.
Second and third. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Yessi?
Yes.
Director Russell? Yes. Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Yes.
And I'll do the same for Syosset Valley Fire. I'm assuming everyone's had time to look at the agenda, and can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Roll call. I don't think we need roll call.
Director
Sorry.
Hickson?
Yes.
Director Burns?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
And on behalf of the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Director Yessi?
Yes.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Hickson?
Yes.
And Director Spade?
Yes.
So Chief, you and Jim gonna go ahead with the opinion?
Yes, yeah, I don't know. Were you gonna say anything, Pete, or?
Yes, today
Pete?
we've got 4 individuals who are going to graduate from the fire academy, and they are now firefighter 1s. 3 will be coming towards Syosset Valley. They'll be part of our department, and 1 is from Swiss Home Dental. It was one of the most difficult academies I've seen since I've been here almost 13 years, and they all prevailed and made it through. So I think a round of applause would be great. With that, now that they're going to be firefighters here, what we do is we pin them as firefighters. So,
Recruits will have you stand right up here. Standing at 45 years so you face the cameras. Do they have copies?
we do.
They did. Got it already. I state your name.
I, William Jones,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to protect the citizens and visitors of our community,
to protect the citizens and visitors of our community,
to follow the orders of my commanding officers,
to follow the orders of my commanding officers,
to always treat my fellow first responders with respect and professionalism,
to always treat my fellow first responders with respect,
to treat the people I'm called to help as though they are a member of my family,
to treat the people I'm called to help as though they are a member of my family,
to represent Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue or Swiss Home Deadwood with honor and dignity both on and off duty,
to represent Siuslaw Valley Fire dignity both on and off duty,
and to uphold all local, state, and federal constitutions and laws.
and to uphold all local, state, and federal constitutions and laws.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I'll now be presenting the badges, but if they have significant others, family, people that are important to them that would like to come up and pin these fine candidates that they just gave to me for 2 weeks straight every day, I'd like them to come forward so they can do the official pinning. It's okay, I'm going to hand it to you here.
Just right to the teacher. Just do it.
Which side?
It's on the right. There you go.
It's only a slight wound. It'll heal.
We're married, by the way.
Oh, so you're not gonna brush my teeth and everything. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Congratulations, thank you very much. Thank you to Firefighter Orozco with helping out with the academy. You all did awesome. You may now be free to celebrate, but don't celebrate too much because you're now on duty.
Everybody something downstairs, Academy grads, we'll go downstairs.
Okay. Next on the agenda, happy to announce that Jason Hawkins, the CAO from Harvard Medical Center, is going to present some information about the MIH program. Thanks.
So Matt Howard asked me to come and share a little bit where we are with the program. I am handing out this was done back in the first year, this past spring, a white page and a podcast that was actually done nationally on our program here in Florence by the American Hospital Association. And they were very interested in the program. There's been a lot of papers written about community paramedicine programs. and the effect that they have in their communities. And when they saw that a rural community and a critical access hospital in the partnership with Western Lane, that they picked up the phone and gave us a call, wanting to know how it's working after the first year. And I should say, Dr. Foster was invited to come along as well, but he's overseas, so you're kind of stuck with me tonight. So, but as you can see, there's a picture of him, and it's a front and back. But first of all, I guess some of you are probably very familiar with the program. Or how familiar are all of you? I don't want to repeat things you've already heard, or not. Maybe some of the room knows, some of the room. Okay, so I'll do a high-level overview. It's been in existence now. It's coming up on 2 years. It's a partnership between Peace Harbor Medical Center and Western Lane Ambulance, and funded mostly by Peace Harbor Medical Center Foundation. And the point of coming together, two organizations, is to improve the community health. You have patients that oftentimes get discharged from a hospital. They go home. They don't understand their medications. Maybe things aren't quite the way they were when they left. Maybe there was a caregiver that was there but is no longer there. The paramedic, as you know, goes into the home shortly thereafter and does a home assessment. Sometimes when they're home and things have a chance to calm down, they have an opportunity to talk about their medications a little bit more second and third time. Sometimes we find out that there might have been a caregiver that's no longer there. Sometimes they go in and do a house assessment and find out there are slips and trips and rugs and things like that that are there for them. And sometimes we find that they're having a difficult time getting connected back with their primary care physician or home health referral, and they can kind of accelerate that process and head that off before something happens and they end up back in our emergency room and they bounce back and they're admitted back into the hospital. So that's having a tremendous effect on that as well. There are also other individuals, frequent flyers or friendly faces, that tend to frequent our ER. This is also an opportunity to be able to see them in the home and de-escalate anything that would be happening there. I can't particularly speak to, but I know the beginning and origins was also unnecessary ambulance trips. I can't get inside of that for sure, but that was part of the thought that there are responses back to people's homes, and sometimes a full crew gets deployed and the paramedic can go into the home in a much cheaper way for doing things for that. I've been around a little bit of this in my history. This program has exceeded all of our expectations. We estimate for every dollar we spend in this program, we save $5. So if you're running a program for about $100,000 a year, you're saving $500,000 in healthcare costs, improving patient experience, keeping people from being readmitted, unnecessary ER visits. So obviously the healthcare industry was very interested in what we were doing here and how it's working in a rural area in particular. I don't want to be remiss that with this program being in existence for about a year and a half, and then when we were approached, Western Lane Behavioral Health Network was approached about mobile crisis, it was a much easier conversation around, we already had a kind of a mobile program in place, and taking advantage of some of the similar thought processes on a macro level, we were able to look and say, well, maybe that makes sense to have mobile crisis being deployed out of Western Lane as well, the SISO volunteer fire and rescue team. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. The white paper that's on here, speaks to the ER visits, speaks to the partnership that I already talked about a little bit. It also talks a little bit about a palliative care program that does a lot of people that are having to manage kind of, chronic disease, end-of-life type things. And oftentimes, they end up sometimes in our emergency room as well. We didn't necessarily see that as being a big component of that, but it really was. It actually reduced our palliative care visits by 50% of patients that are in that kind of healthcare spectrum. That was one of those ones you think you know what the program's going to do, and then reality comes in, you start seeing a lot of other benefits around it. So I think that's some of the lessons we've learned. Right now, we have funding through June 30th of 2020. We are putting together a funding strategy with Peace Health, with the help of Chief Schick. We want to start approaching the insurance carriers, in particular the two CCOs that are in Lane County now, Pacific Source and Trillium, and want to see what their interest is in helping partner with us to improving the health in our communities. So we have requested a meeting with with some folks, Chief Chick's involved in that, and so we start out, decide we want to bring to that discussion initially, and some follow-up meetings. I also wanted to mention that two things. We just most recently had our Peace Health Summit, where basically about 4 to 5, 6 representatives from each Peace Health community, so a total of 10 communities, were at their annual summit. And this was one of the 2 programs that was actually highlighted across Peace Health as an opportunity to improve our community health. So it's being seen here locally, it's being seen across Peace Health, it's a $2.5 billion organization, of how it's improving the health and well-being. And I just found out this week, Peace Health nominated this program to the Catholic Health Association as their National Service Award. So it's getting a lot of notoriety about what's going on. So a lot of good work here. On behalf of Peace Harbor, we really want to thank Western Lane for what's been going on with that. So that's kind of the highlights. Reduces readmits, reduces ER visits. I think it reduces ambulance trips. Patient experience is certainly that improving, and it's helping out with medications, home assessments, and those kind of things. So, initially we had Chris, and now we have Wendy. Both have been phenomenal. I should mention they have access to our electronic health record. So when they get discharged, they're able to actually access those things and be able to understand who their family physician is and try to make those connections. So we are integrated in that fashion. I'll stop there. I'm not sure if I missed anything. Yes, Director Spade?
I got a question. Is this a volunteer program?
No.
The patient is required?
Wait, for the patient? Yes.
By the patient.
Yeah. We upon discharge, we determined some potential high risk for readmission when they're being discharged from Peace Harbor. And then we do a consultation with the patient and ask them, we would like a paramedic to come into the home after you're home for a day or two just to visit, make sure, are you okay with that? And if we're really good, they're visiting with that patient before they leave and saying, introducing themselves, and I'll be out of the phone if that's okay. So when they knock on the door, they already see the face.
So what's the percentage of patients that say yes, they want that service?
About 20%.
20?
20% of our patients. So if we have, 80, 70 discharges a month, about 20% of that. Last year we had 500 visits and 60 clients. So, the first year.
I would say that one of the other benefits is that if we're not having readmissions, we have beds.
Can you speak up, Larry,
I
please?
said, one of the benefits of the program as well is that if we don't have people being readmitted, that space in the ER is available for someone else who will have a better experience because they need to be seen. Whereas if you're tying up beds and resources of the ER docs and people who are just habitual readmitters or who could be cared for with a paramedic, that's good for the community because it keeps our capacity up.
So Jason, one of our challenges has been long-term funding to make sure we can sustain this program. And I know Peace Health and has been very supportive of it. But long-term, do you see this as something that we can get on a sustainable path of we can plan for the future?
I think, so the short answer is yes. How soon? We don't know. I think locally, with the 2 CCOs, Pacific Source and Trillium, we have some traction there. Nationally, that's why we are kind of focal point for the American Hospital Association to try to get the payers engaged in this. Some states have stepped up and are paying for those paramedic visits, some have not. We're trying to get it to be done nationally. And I should mention another note here, American Hospital Association did call about a month ago and wants to do a second round and see how the second year is going too. So we're trying to do our part to spread the purpose and the good news and lobbying for that and showing the results of what we're doing.
Greatly appreciate it.
James, just a quick question, just clarification. When you said 20%, is that 20% of the overall patients or 20% of the patients that you ask, would you like to take another?
Overall patients.
Overall, okay. And just out of curiosity, do you have any idea, out of the people that you ask, how many of them say yes?
I don't know for sure, but I have never heard that someone's refusing the opportunity for stay. People generally want someone coming to their homes. They're happy to get out, and they're saying, if I can get out a little sooner, and I can get home to be with my family and my pets, and you want to come visit them, that's okay. And the connection, the hospital has a connection with them, but the ambulance and fire district also has a trusted relationship in our community. And you can sense that connection happening very quickly when you say someone's coming from Western Lady Ambulance. Very much like, okay, there's no hesitation there. It's not another agency that they've not heard of. You know, it's somebody local. It's where we always do.
So over my career, this is the third MIH program I've been associated with. And two of I was involved in developing from scratch, so it was great to come here and have a program in place. But I think what's key is to have a passionate person in there. And I can't say enough good things about Wendy. I mean, Chris, I didn't see him operate as much, but I think the same. That's critical to the success of the program, is to have those people in there. So.
Especially when you're one we have available.
Thanks, Jason.
Any other thoughts? I wasn't sure what you wanted to hear, but that's just give a quick overview and keep you posted on how it's going. And really, really appreciate the partnership to have. I've been in communities where you don't have those relationships, maybe with the fire district or the ambulance district. It's really nice to have walked into a community where those are already established. So thank you, Rick, for that. Okay. Great. Anything else? I can go home.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, sounds good.
Appreciate it.
And that document I handed, that's a public document that was sent across the world, so you're welcome to share that with whoever you All right. You guys have a good evening.
See you later.
Yeah, we're going to have Lori Severance come talk about our new MCR program. Sorry, too many abbreviations.
So our MCR program is now live. We went live November 15th. And so just a little outline of the program at this point. We are dispatched only through 911, so any first responder can get us tapped out. We respond to any kind of mental health crisis with depression, anxiety, bipolar, any kind of suicidal ideation. We also do interventions after a suicide, families that have experienced a suicide. Also things with drug and alcohol, homeless people, welfare checks. Those are the kinds of things that PD is planning to send our way. So in this first week, we've had 4 calls already. 3 of them were on homeless people. 1 was a mental health issue, somebody having a mental health crisis. And so far we're working well with PD, and the first 4 calls went well. We're kind of identifying glitches in the road. I'm sure there'll be plenty of little bumps in the road that we'll have to iron out. And we're kind of identifying those, and so far working really well together. We're going to have, and I think you guys all know, we talked about before, it's kind of based on the Cahoots program in Eugene. Unlike Cahoots, we're going to have single coverage. So this first year anyway. So what we're doing right now is when first responders call us out, we will meet them on the scene and do a kind of a quick assessment, and if things seem safe, they can go back on the streets and carry on, and we'll stay on the scene ourselves. 3 out of the 4 situations we were able to do that. 1, police weren't able to leave and they had to extricate the guy. He was not cooperative. But it gets them back on the streets and able to follow through with their work quicker. We also can't provide transportation because we aren't going to have any kind of a safe vehicle where people are in a separate compartment, and again, we're single coverage. So, and the only other things we aren't responding to is domestic violence or sexual assault, because those are handled by SOS. If they need our assistance, we'd be glad to come as well, but that's kind of their jurisdiction. Second year of the grant, there's going to be funding for an additional sheriff's officer. And I don't know how that'll look. I guess Chief Turner, I'm sure, is kind of figuring that out between law enforcement agencies. But once we have someone that's more available to respond to these calls in a timely manner outside of city limits, then second year, that's what we're looking at, is being able to respond up to Deadwood, Mapleton, in the county county areas here. So far, the team members have had about 100 hours of classroom training. And the first 90 days, and that may end up being longer, we'll kind of see how things are doing. But for now, the plan is for the first 90 days, I will go along with the team members to just provide some clinical input and on-the-job training. Might need to be longer. Some people may be ready to be cut loose sooner than that. So that's what the training is looking like at this point. Anything I didn't cover?
Who's funding this program?
Oh, well, Lane County is, yes.
100%.
100%, absolutely. Yeah, they're paying for training, they're providing us with a vehicle, they're paying for the computer and the software and all that, paying for people's time, which is nice too. So it's now a paid program, whereas before CST was all voluntary. So we're hoping we can maybe attract some more people in and have more responders. Maybe even double coverage at some point would be nice, because then we wouldn't have to, then police could just send us calls and not have to respond out there on some of these, so.
Lori, so when 911 is called in, is who determines whether you guys go? Is it the dispatcher? Is it the police? How does that work?
Dispatch, and I assume they consult with police, but they have a list of those criteria and calls to call us on. And at this point, again, first responders are also going, meeting us out there. But they've been able to leave pretty quickly on most of the calls we've had so far. But yeah, they are still dispatched, and they dispatch us at the same time. We meet up on scene, do a quick assessment, and decide who needs to be handling the call.
Thanks.
Lori, is the funding is multi-year though? They've committed to how many years now, Lane County?
They have set aside the funds, is my understanding, for 3 years.
Okay.
But they have sent us a 1-year contract. So things can be, adjusted, renegotiated, whatever, but the funds are set aside for the first 3 years.
Great, thank you. Good job. Any more questions?
How is when you have the call, who do you get the call from typically?
How do we get the call? It comes over our pager.
Right.
And then also we have an app on the phone, En-route Pro, and it shows up there, and they're tagging it simply as MCR now. So we know it's separate from CST. CST, under fire and ambulance, we're still responding to structured fires, sudden deaths, CPRs, and that's still under the fire department. It's not billed to the contract. But anything that is classified as MCR on the pager and on En-route Pro comes under the contract.
So if, as a community member, if we saw somebody having a problem, would we always call 911, or would there be some other vehicle that?
Yeah, it would have to be through dispatch, so they can call the non-emergency police number or 911 if needed, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I know that Mr. Campbell, we're all up here and we all have an idea of what the Severin talked about, but this is being filmed for the public, and the one thing that I get the most comments from at my office is, who the heck knows what SCR or MHI is? It's going out to the public. We're privileged to know, but not anybody who listens to watch the television when it comes out. Some people might be lucky if they know what CPR might be. So let's stop using those acronyms, please.
Move on to approval of the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm assuming everyone's had time to look over the minutes, so I can get a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Minutes are approved.
And for Western Lane,
A second.
first and second. Roll call, please.
All right, Cecil Valley. Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Burns?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
Western Lane, Director Yesney.
Yes.
Director Russell.
Yes.
Director Farnsworth.
Yes.
Director Webb.
Yes. We might want to circle back, public comment, yeah. So we'll open for public comment, opportunity for the public to speak for a maximum of 30 minutes total, 3 minutes allocated to each speaker. Anybody in the public want to address the board? They're leaving.
It's a big chance.
3, 2, 1. Okay. Closed. Thank you. Yeah, we have to, Larry, you want to do the,
Yeah.
if you want to.
On behalf of Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, is there anybody who wishes to make public comment?
Hi, he told me to say hi.
Thank you.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes for this. Seeing no other volunteers for public comment, I'll close the public comment.
And approval of the minutes.
And approval of the minutes, okay. I'm looking for a motion for approval of the minutes for Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Perfect.
Roll call.
Director Yesney.
Yes.
Director Farnsworth.
Yes.
Director Hickson.
Yes.
Director Spade.
Yes.
Okay, Dina, do you want to do the review of the financials?
Certainly. Okay, so we are 4 months into the fiscal year, so expenses should be tracking at around 33–34%. I did want to let you know that Mary and Holly are being trained to run financial reports. So it's a good experience for them to learn how this works. Just a few follow-ups per Director Yesney's request. Both districts have a P&L 2-year comparison report included in the packet. But when I ran them, I could see that there are some, we're not really comparing apples to apples yet on some of these. So if you see some discrepancies, the financials are still a work in progress. I'll give you an example with like the Life Med comparison. There's more money on one year than there is on the other because we haven't made that transfer yet, that annual transfer where we take the revenue out and transfer it over to Western Lane. What Chief and I discussed is a new Life Med Excel report, which is one of the last reports in the Western Lane packet. And what we did was we took the numbers off of the collection report and added the expenses that Life Med has for the entire year, plus the write-off. So it does give you a real good picture of what the expenses versus the revenue is on an annual basis. And if you like that report, we will continue to run that. Director Farnsworth, is that what you were looking for when you mentioned this a couple months ago?
Yes. So what I would suggest is that you put it in the vertical format, like our other budgets.
Like our budgets?
I mean, you've got it in an Excel spreadsheet, so rather than doing it horizontally, you do it vertically. And in terms of, like we show, for example, we have write-offs, expenses, total cost, and income. Okay, so like you have a beginning balance, right? At the beginning, and then you have your income, and then you have your expenses, and your part of your expenses would include your write-offs. And you have your net, either net income or net loss. So this is very close, but if we could turn it so that it was like the other financials you're doing for us, like the one right above it, the profit and loss comparison, that would be very helpful. But yes, this is very much closer to what we're looking for, I think.
All right, we'll continue to work on it.
Yeah, that's great.
I also wanted to ask the SBFR and Authority Board, currently Western Lane has the credit card statement included in their financials. Is that something first that Western Lane wants to continue to see?
Yes.
And second, is that something that the Authority and Central Valley Fire would like to see?
I know it.
Okay. I will add that next month. And then also in your packet are the first financials for the Authority. You have a balance sheet and a profit and loss. This is where we're starting. So we're developing it as we go, adding accounts as we start to see them. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
I have just a couple of quick expenditure on the SCFR side. Just curious as what they were. One of them is, it's under the transaction list. There it is. Check number 27278. It's LN Curtis and Sons for $35,798. Just curious.
So that would be the equipment purchase for bunker gear.
Oh, okay. I remember you talking about that last time. Just kidding. And there was a plumbing expense for $5,000. Chuck's Plumbing, or I'm sorry, for $2,500. Just wondering if there was let's see, 27274.
I'd have to check on that. I don't have that in front of me.
I'm just curious.
I believe, was there, on the plumbing, was there some additional work done in the residence quarters?
No, not yet. We've had a couple plumbing issues come up, so I'm not exactly sure which one that is, but they just keep hitting us.
Maybe more fiber.
I think it was a water supply problem, if I'm thinking of the correct one, but I can get you more details on that.
That's all I got. Thank you for additional WLFEA.
Great. I have a question about the Authority. So the budget is to zero out, and this has a $34,000. Is it because we haven't transferred the funds?
We haven't transferred the entire funds, correct, but I'm waiting for all the tax revenue to come in. We are starting to get tax revenue in, by the way, so, and as we get towards the end of the month, we will get a lot more in, but I have only transferred enough to get through the October and November expenses and payroll.
Okay, but normally speaking, this will zero out every month, right?
Well, the MCR, the Mobile Crisis Response Grant includes overhead, which is going through WLFEA.
Okay.
So there will be about $25,000 that'll go to WLFEA. That will show up as a profit.
Okay, that's fine. But normally speaking, we wouldn't have this situation except for when we collect our taxes. Is my point. Normally, this budget would zero out every month if all things were equal in terms of our tax collections.
Correct.
I think Nina's proposing moving all the money for the year in December as well, right?
Correct.
So revenue could be.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, we'll get ahead.
And then I would ask what Director Isney asked last time, if we could get the quarterly reports going forward. I know we haven't had a quarter, but when we do have quarterly data, that we could see that as well.
So that's what you have in your packet this time,
Right.
but it's through October instead of, so you'll have one in this, in January for the second quarter.
Right, so what I mean is, a year from now, we'll be comparing this quarter with last year's same quarter.
Right.
When we go forward, so.
Okay.
Thank you for those additional reports too. Appreciate that.
Any other transaction list question, would that be okay at this point?
Yeah, I think anything in the financials is.
All about olives on the credit card?
So what happened there was, we went to Holly, Mary, and I went to the Oregon Fire Services Office Administrators Conference, and we put together a gift basket for their raffle.
Sounds good. Very good.
I guess a general comment too is, great job, controlling expenses during the dry period, because it looks good. I mean,
Yeah.
we're able to keep cash up and operate. We expect to run at a loss, but the loss is less than what was expected, so good job on that. Any other questions or comments? I don't think we really have approval anymore, just review and.
Correct.
On that,
Yes,
so.
we can move on.
Good. Okay, reviewed. Okay, so we'll move on to Western Lane. Oh, I wondered, Director Hickson, do you have to leave shortly?
I just want to make sure we get through anything that needs a quorum vote or anything like that.
I wonder if we want to change the agenda?
Yeah, we go to new business.
Yeah, maybe go to new business and do those two.
Okay, so the new business items. Okay.
So as part of our, you want to do the first one? Yeah. Part of the review of our equipment needs, we've identified several vehicles that at some point we anticipate we're going to sell those. And first step is to have the board approve the surplus list. It doesn't mean that these vehicles are disappearing tomorrow. We'll keep them as long as we can functionally use them. But at some point, as we replace vehicles or as their maintenance costs are just too high, then we'll start getting rid of these. But we would like approval of this list of vehicles.
You're going to keep the Crown Vic though, right?
It'll be for sale, and we'll notify you.
Yeah. All look like good choices to me. A 93 Chevy Blazer.
I've had some interest in that.
Collector's item.
Any feedback on that? Yes, okay with, everyone okay with it? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Do we need to take a vote on it? Okay, let's take a vote. I'm going to get a motion to approve the list of apparatus.
So moved.
Second. Aye, get a roll call vote?
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Burns?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
So these next two items, we have the opportunity to apply for a grant to replace repeaters and some other hardware up at Herman Peak. We're working along with police department. So this is a collaboration, a grant proposal from SCFR, Western Lane, and the police department. First step is the board has to approve, yes, we can go forward with applying for that grant. We haven't done it yet. This is the first step, that you guys are okay with that. I think we're talking, what was it, we were looking at 300,000 for all three agencies, and this will cover about half or a little bit more. So we have talked to the USDA. They're very, very supportive of this grant. So we're confident that, or hopeful at least, that we'll get these funds.
So it's a 45% matching grant?
Yes. It is a matching grant, but we have budgeted to pay 100%, but yeah, so we can get some funds, yeah.
Can I get a motion for approval to apply for the grant? It doesn't cost anything to apply for it. Yep. Okay. Roll call?
Director Hickson?
Yes.
Director Burns?
Yes.
Director Spade?
Yes.
Okay, I think we'll just piggyback onto that. And I guess my only question was, did we budget for this in capital?
Yes, in capital.
We did?
It's
Okay.
under, it's called repeaters.
Okay. Could you repeat that? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve applying for the grant for the radio upgrade.
A second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Yesney?
Yes.
Director Russell?
Yes.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, and I think we'll move back to old business and we'll talk about the approved funding for PERS, the side account. Chief?
So last I checked on PERS website, they still have quite a few dollars left in their funding, so 84 million out of 100 million, so there are still funds there. This opens up December 2nd for all those agencies that weren't eligible in the September timeframe. So at this point, I think we've talked about it. SCFR put in, or is voted to put in 300,000 with the 25% match. Now Western Lane and Sister has the same opportunity. Again, this goes into a side account. Once it goes into that side account, we no longer have control over that. It does stay specific for Western Lane. And as you know, we couldn't pull that out at some point. But that's the only way to get a 25% match. Placing money into that side account does reduce our rate. We're not sure. It looks like it'll be a couple % reduction. But again, it depends on what they set their rates at. So what I've heard from various people is that this program may continue. There may be additional opportunities for 25% matches. That's what the sports betting fund, I believe, was supposed to be dedicated to allow other agencies or additional agencies to continue to participate. The fact that many agencies are not participating is, and we talked to Brenda about that, and she gave her opinions. So now we just wanted to know if Western Lane wants to participate.
Okay. I think we need to definitely discuss this to some degree. I think we budgeted $150,000 for this.
Correct.
A couple of thoughts and maybe a couple of questions. One, I had a thought, gosh, maybe we can't do this because we already have this unfunded liability, and our financial situation is stable to slightly deteriorating, possibly, although you're doing a really good job with the finances. But really, the money we have in the district may have to be used for PERS, regardless if it's in our account or part of it set aside in a separate trust. So the thing that attracted me is it's invested like PERS, and if it's not tapped right away, in other words, we make our annual payments out of our regular ongoing cash, right? And this fund would sit and accumulate, hopefully grow, and offset our liability, is the way I understand it. So do payments come out of that side account at all? Or does it just get reinvested and grow?
It's reinvested and grows.
That's what I
So
thought.
it's the earnings from the side account that are supposed to help
Offset
mitigate
the
the,
unfunded liability.
yeah,
So it grow,
it'll mitigate some of the increases, so,
yeah.
you know,
And it
instead of
also
having.
lowers our percentage somehow too.
Yeah, because it offsets
Of our
that liability,
payments.
so
Right.
our payment goes down, right? Good. So I was looking at the history of the fund, it earns about 7%. And we don't earn near that in our money market when we hold our, cash. And with the 25% match, it almost seems like, man, you can't get a 25% guaranteed return day one on anything. So I don't know, I guess I'm getting to the point that I think we ought to consider some funding in the side account for sure.
A couple of budget cycles ago, I thought we could try and put $500,000 in there because our particular agency's unfunded liability is huge. It's like $1 million. 2.8 million, yeah. And the actuaries look at it periodically and tell you if it's getting better or worse. And sorry, Sam. Part of the problem with the actuarial liability is that sometimes the state government kicks the can down the road and says they'll amortize things over 22 years instead of 20 years, but the bills are going to come due, and we need to do our part to protect the retirement security of our employees. And so I think that we should put as much as we can in there. And I think $150,000 is a starting point. I wish we could do more. I wish we could take the whole thing offline and manage it ourselves, but that ship has sailed. So I think there are people who are trying to create mechanisms like this one to improve the situation for agencies, whether you're a school district or you're an ambulance district or a water district, you have the same problem. And in order to bring certainty to your budget process in the future, when PERS increases are forecast to jump astronomically, this is a small step in the right direction, trying to, put a cap on it. Slow the rate of increase is the way to put it. Because we'll still see rate increases in our PERS obligations. But this is supposed to, reduce the slope, if you will. So I could support 150,000.
Cindy, you got comments?
Well, personally, I'm not a real big fan. I'm a big fan of the side account and offsetting some of our future expenses, but I'm not a big fan of concentrating all of our cash or all of PERS reserve in the PERS account. And if the PERS, the people that decide on how to invest that money invest that money the wrong way, we're double exposed. PERS has done well over time. 25% match is a good thing. But I would almost rather have the money in an account that's ours in a different kind of account profile, so that if something happened, we could actually have access to get that money back. Once we put it into PERS, it's gone. And if PERS, if it loses, it's gone. The investment with PERS it's out. So that's my concern. The 25% is a big incentive. But again, you're concentrating all your money into one fund, and that bothers me.
Could I ask a question too, if along Director Webb's line, does this preclude us from having an additional side account of our own somewhere else? Okay, I just want to make sure.
But when we say one fund, though, aren't we saying the investment vehicle that PERS is managing, and it has hundreds of stocks, bonds, and investments in it. So more often than not, it will track the market or do better than the market. So it's not like we're putting all of our money into one stock. We're putting it in the hands of one manager, and that would be PERS.
And you have to do a 25% match plus the rate offset. I mean, that's a lot of savings.
Right.
You're giving up control of your money for that.
Control the money, to me, I don't know. I still am concerned. I've seen PERS go down significantly.
Yeah, I think it'd be just like the stock market. You'd have to be aware it's going to go up and down, and hopefully it's not going to be tapped, because over time it should average 6 or 7% return, which it has historically. I mean, that's what we're betting on. That's the risk that you take, because you can't reallocate the fund, and once it's in PERS, PERS controls it. So there's a little leap of faith there.
And ultimately, it's controlled by politicians.
Yeah, the investment.
And how much do you want, how much of your dollar do you want to put on them?
So this year's budget, you have placed 150,000 for PERS. It wasn't designated unfunded liability or side account for PERS. So, has been budgeted.
Does anybody feel comfortable making a motion at this point? We have further discussion?
I'll make a motion to place $150,000 in the PERS side account, assuming that we're getting the 25% match. And we'll give it a try and see how it works. If they come up with funding the following year, I think it's telling in one fashion that there are so few agencies that have grabbed this money, that there's still money available for us after December. But I think we should take the 25% rate of return, and we're testing 150,000. We're not testing all of our assets at this point. So.
We have a second. discussion? If that's allowed, is that okay? Okay. So, I agree with that, those comments as well. I think it's something that's prudent to do, with the return that's going to be coming from the state on that money and their past performance, I think is worth the risk. So, no further discussion, let's call for a vote.
Director Gesney?
Yes.
Director Russell?
It's a hard one. Yeah.
Director Farnsworth?
Yes?
Director Webb?
That I don't want to, but the 25% match, I'll say yes. I would like to consider setting up a side account on our own outside of that.
So another question, what's the next steps, and, I mean, if something, when do we have to fund, and when is an out? So you apply, you're accepted.
We have until August to state or put that funds into the PERS account.
Okay.
We just have to let them know, well, we can start letting them know after December 2nd. It goes until the funds run out. I don't think the funds are going to run out. If we decide not to take advantage of that and change our mind, that's fine, and they would just go to somebody, the next person on the list.
Okay. So this actually reserves it for us to apply and get funded by August?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is not saying for sure we're gonna do it, just that we're applying for it.
It reserves our spot,
Right.
or that 25% match.
Can I change my vote to yes then? I thought I was giving away my money right now.
Well, with that change or clarification, can we, if you'd like to,
Discussion.
I'm okay with that.
One thing, I like Mike's idea. I think any year in which the 25% match is not available, or in any year when we are not motivated to participate, I think a side account is very prudent. I think we should be setting aside funds for PERS greater than what we're doing now. So I think both ideas have great merit.
I'll throw something out for consideration. We own the lot across the street. If we could sell the lot across the street at a decent price, I would suggest putting that money into a self-managed side account for that purpose. And I think that would be a good offset. Those monies, if they were in our hands, we could also move them. If PERS suddenly had a great match, we could take advantage of that. But I don't want to put all my eggs in that one PERS basket. Personally, I just get concerned about that concentration.
Does the site, would that, oh, so this is maybe future, we could talk about this some more later, but to Director Webb's point, if we set up our own site account that we could, that's not a dedicated trust, that we can get the money back, does that money, is it still available to lower the unfunded liability and reduce our PERS rate?
If we put it into our own, no, it would just,
Okay.
you'd have to go.
It would just be like a side savings account,
Right.
but it wouldn't reduce our PERS
Like that rate offset is because you put money in there to
for, yeah, in
account
trust.
for your unfunded liability.
Yeah, okay. Shoot, all right.
But you got control, you got 100% control of your
Right.
own.
You got control of the investment.
We could spend all that money on lottery tickets.
Sports betting.
Yeah, sports
To
betting.
fund our own PERS. Okay, good discussion, thank you.
So we will
We have
put,
direction,
we'll put in our wishes at 150,000,
150.
150,000.
Good. And it's budgeted, so good job budgeting it. Okay. At this point, move on with the staff reports. Chief?
Yeah, I just wanted to announce that the SB bar no longer has a quorum, so their meeting has ended. I don't know if you, did you get the time and then left? or
Yes.
approximate time? Good. Okay.
You don't have to make any decisions anyway, don't worry about it.
We want you to stay.
Well, but we opened with a quorum. Somebody might have a conflict of interest or somebody leaves, but still the meeting's open.
Once you no longer have a quorum though?
Yeah, I believe so.
I've had many instances where I've seen the ambulance district and others that open with 5 people, but 4 have conflict. And the decision was made by 1 person.
Well, we need to have an attorney here. I don't know that. So you're suggesting that
There's nothing going on, but we opened this meeting up with a quorum.
right.
I mean, I've seen the ambulance district and the school district open with quorums, and people have conflicts all the time because of friendships or money, and they've made the decisions.
My recall is the same as yours. It might be good to look at that up for
Yeah,
future
look at
reference.
that.
Yeah.
Kind of
It was
like you're
open
saying,
legally with a quorum.
So you're saying it stays open then,
Mhm.
even without a quorum at that point?
It was open with a quorum.
Yeah.
So I met recently with Chief Turner and police department, of course, and I've just been trying to open up some line of communications, had a nice chat with Aaron Reynolds, city manager. Still planning for me to address city council at some point. They have some questions about WLFEA, Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, of course, like a lot of people. And, described to Aaron that you shouldn't have noticed anything. She hadn't, but she just heard about it. So I think it'd be nice just to make sure we get that message out there that they won't see any difference in their emergency responses. So hopefully, and of course, board members are welcome to attend the city council meeting with me, but hopefully it'll be first of the year, January, February timeframe I can get on their agenda. We had a meeting recently with Lane County LRIG, and I'm not sure what LRIG stands for, Lane Regional Information Group. They have to do with communications and
Radio infrastructure system.
radio infrastructure group. And as also with the director of the Office of Emergency Management, Patience Willingham. And they heard that we were having to have some communication issues as far as equipment, that we have to replace all the repeaters, and we're talking about $300,000. So they were very concerned and wanted to know how they could help, which was nice. One of the things that we did talk about is that we own Herman Peak, where we have our repeaters. We lease the land. We don't own the land. We lease it from ODF, and then SCFR owns it. Western Lane Police Department, I think the tribes pay a few dollars each year to maintain their repeaters there. But we're responsible for maintenance costs. And recently, we've had a lot of maintenance costs. There are backup batteries there, a dozen or 15. We had to replace really very large batteries. So one of the things we're talking about with them is if they would like to take over that site in exchange for something of value, of course. And they are very willing to discuss that. So at some point in the future, we'll be bringing this to the board to see if we want to get out of the business of maintaining that site. It wouldn't affect our performance in any way. We would still be allowed to have our repeaters there. They have some equipment now, and they trade some maintenance a request from us for that. So I think it would be a win-win type of situation for both agencies. So we'll be talking about that more.
Chief, who's leasing the site? Is it Sayuslaw?
SVFR, owns all the equipment, and then we lease it from ODF for I think $1 a year.
So it's ODF land.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. And so this other group would take over the maintenance of the site, like the batteries and so forth?
That would be our wishes. They right now they own the tower on Linnea, and they talk about us about piggybacking onto that tower as well as a backup. We have nothing there right now. We thought that was a good idea. Then I said, well, hey, why don't you guys take over this site? And we still have to discuss it with them and make sure. I mean, talking to the people that were at the meeting, they're interested, but I think it would have to be a county level decision, just like it would have to be a board level decision here, whether we want to do that.
Maybe you can get them to buy your vehicle for you in exchange.
There you go. They are supplying a vehicle for the mobile crisis response, so that's good. Have a meeting tomorrow with Three Rivers Casino. Dina and I are going to go talk to them. Like I said before, our IGAs with them to provide emergency services has expired. Been expired for the last 5 years. So, they've still been paying for services, so which is great. We just want to make sure that we're meeting their needs, maybe get an up-to-date IGA. So hopefully we bring those back to the boards here at some point and getting those signed and just seeing how we can help each other going down the road. So looking forward to that. And the last thing, I've been looking into, this is something I started when I was up on Cano Island, starting a drone program. So I've been talking to some of our regional partners. I think the use of drones around the country is starting to grow rapidly. Like I said, we had a drone up in Washington, which we used for search and rescue. We used for assessment of structure fires. Police department asked to borrow several times for searches. So I think we definitely have enough regional partners that would be interested in that. And 2 weeks ago, I finished my ground school to become a drone pilot. And so I have to take my FAA written test if I want to become a drone pilot. So I think you'll be hearing more about that. I'm looking for some grants now to see if we can, have a grant or a drone supplied through a grant. We were very lucky up in Washington. We had a company donated 2 drones to us. Had infrared capabilities, which we used quite a bit out in the ocean. We were looking for swimmers, so it was very nice. So I think it's got a lot of potential. And we do have a lot of people in the community that already are drone pilots, so it definitely be a community effort and a regional effort.
Do you have some firefighters already?
Just me. I haven't talked to anybody yet, but I'm sure that we have some that we will need to do. And you don't have to be a single engine pilot or anything to do this. It's much easier if you are. Then all you have to do is an online test. So if we have any pilots that are interested in becoming drone pilots.
Hey, Sam.
I don't know, I'm speaking for myself, I'd crash the thing and destroy it. So.
Yeah, we don't know that. So we'll hear more about that.
That's awesome.
So that's all I've got.
That's great.
Have to run the hangar at the airport for it.
Absolutely.
That's great, very interesting. Jim, you doing the ops chief?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everybody. As you can see, the combined operations report again is together. Both sides are up. As we look down through, EMS, the 911 response and transports, for October up 25, transfers up 24. There's no negatives there except in the MAH visits, and that's explainable. Fire total for the month, we were up for 20. There was 9 additional than we had over last year and 21 additional on the EMS side. Fires, we went down 1, which is good. If anybody saw the big column of smoke today, that was an approved ODF burn. We didn't have anything to do with that one. So, year to date, as you can see, Western Lane Ambulance is right at 3,178. It's 142 over where they were last year. As we're Sayusla Valley Fires at 728 at the end of the month. We're last time year to date we were at 579, so that's a 109 increase. Looks like we're probably going to be up another. By the way, it's looking right now another 120 for next month on the fire side. Haven't seen the statistics on the EMS side with Matt's absence right now. Rescue and EMS and fire are both huge pickups on that, as well as our service calls. When we start working together and doing more things, each side starts to pick up a little more work, and it's showing, I think, benefit for both SBFR and WLAD to be working together on a lot of these calls. We've had some positive patient outcomes and seen some excellent care for not only our patients but better care for our employees.
There's the combined reports inside. If anybody has any questions on the combined reports, I'm happy to add on to those. If there is nothing else.
I got a question. What's MIH?
Sorry, that's the mobile integrated healthcare. That's what we learned about earlier. Yes, sorry about the acronym.
This last month was Fire Prevention Week, or month, but why come all the increase in fires during the fire prevention?
That is something that I brought up with Captain Miller. Why do we have an increase in fire with the fire prevention? Part of it is we are doing much more accurate recording, and even with Fire Prevention Month, we don't hit everybody. Not everybody pays attention.
And the burn ban ended.
Yeah. Our fire loss, you'll see it's listed on about an 18-page report, but I finally got our fire loss figured out with the state reporting system, and we are like $1 million down from where we were last year. So fire loss is better. More fires, but less damage.
That's good.
Well, shout out, thank you to the SBFR crews that came out and put out a fire right next to our fence at our business. I think we had 14 vehicles show up. Thank you very much. And it was a good opportunity for your recruits to come out as well, but thank you for the quick response.
When the reports are in the newspaper of the fire and ambulance runs, they keep saying just transport to Peace Harbor or transport to Riverbend or wherever. I would really like to see it say critical care transport or something like that when we're using our critical care level, because I think that's going to point out to the public why they're paying for it. And right now it just says transfer.
Sure.
I think it's important to put that critical care in there.
Absolutely. I was going to look into some of that as we report it. Simply saying a fire, it could say, a wildland fire or structure fire. And then maybe we can get some more on that, but it would also be good as a critical care transport. I also noticed a couple of areas where it said SBFR transport. I didn't put anybody in mind should pick up and haul anywhere, so.
That's a good point. Jim, does that cover the whole section, the whole report, or are you going to go into more detail on other things?
If anybody would like more detail, I'm happy to go into it, but I provided all the
Okay.
reports out.
I have a question on the GEMT, which Chief would be helpful for you with Matt not here.
So we haven't actually got the money yet. We have been notified. And I think it's good. We're not getting all that money. Bring it up here real quick. Here we go. So, federal funds, $54,809. Of that, we have to pay the state $3,256. State match is something that we have to provide, but they give us that money back. So how this works is federal government won't release the money unless the state puts up some money. And Washington State did the same thing and said, no, we're not putting up any money. And so it's required, the agency has to put that $16,000, and then they give that back to us as part, but certainly that wouldn't be on the plus side for us. Does that make sense?
So we're not going to be receiving 71,000.
We are, but we're going to send them a check for
So
$16,280.
it's actually we're receiving 16,000 less.
Yeah, plus less the $3,256
Yeah.
that the state's going to.
So it's about 50,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's complicated, but that's how we want to do it.
Is this the first year that, and to Director Burns' point, I can't remember what GEMT spells for, and it's not. It's not in there.
Ground emergency medical transport.
Okay.
So this pays additional, right now, it only pays additional for our Medicaid transports. So it's closer to our cost of
Not
service.
managed care, Medicare, right? Yeah.
So this is free money for the state, it's just the state is dispersing it, and we're paying them
Correct.
for
This is all federal
$3,000 to give it to
funds
us.
that they are keeping. This is from 2 years ago. So they've had this money for a while,
So they've gotten interest on it.
I'm sure.
So when, this is 2018, I think.
Yes.
Report, and so is 19 eligible, will it be filed this year, or do we have to wait?
It has has to be filed at the end of this month.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
we
okay.
are working on that.
So potentially we could get 2 payments this year, in our fiscal year. Or at least.
But potentially, yeah,
At
I'm not
least-
sure when their payment cycle is going to work, they're still working that out.
Okay.
We're also, we hired PCG, I don't know what that stands for, but they work with system design, so they're a company that around the country that are helping other agencies that are involved with DMT file correctly. So I don't remember what they charge, I think that might be another 10%. But if you look at the application process, it is daunting. It is nothing that we could have worked through ourselves. Hopefully down the road, it's something that we can do, and we hope to do that.
Probably by the time you figure it out, they'll change the rules.
Yes.
So we were able to, I think it was Ops Chief House and Chief and myself, and we attended a class on this, and this only covers the cost for non-Medicaid managed care patients, and if Medicare managed care patients were included, we think this would be
Tenfold higher.
probably over $500,000. And so the state, my understanding is the state was going to look at applying to get the managed care Medicaid folks on this.
Yeah, last I've heard, that they think this is a couple years out,
Okay,
before they can do that, but yeah.
still working on it though, and its potential is still there.
Right.
Okay, super. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on the Ops Chief report? Thanks for putting those together. I think, does everybody kind of like them combined? And I think that's a good way to do it.
Just a couple quick other shout outs. Firefighter Prestioni leaves very soon for the National Fire Academy to attend a wildland integration class. And Rob Chance has been accepted into the Emergency Services Training Program management course in January. So they'll both be heading out to the East Coast to get some excellent training that comes at pretty much a cost to each district of their meal ticket while they're there. So that's about $180 total, and that's, you know, a week-long class of some of the best instructors in the EMS and fire world. They teach the EFO program, which, you know, I encourage all volunteers and career folks to apply as much as they can for the National Fire Academy. You get one free trip a year, so, and that's all covered by FEMA.
Wow, that's great. That's fabulous. It is great. Okay, any other questions on that report? Great. Thank you, Jim. Chief, sorry. Dina.
My turn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Wi-Fi was going to be upgraded tomorrow. We've had all the wiring done for the 2 additional access points. One of them is, well, we currently have one up there, and the other one is going on the far wall right behind this wall. There will be another access point, and then the second new one is on the west side of the truck bay downstairs. So we've got all that wiring done, and they were going to come in tomorrow and bring in the new equipment. But on Monday, when we all came into work, none of us had any internet on our computers. So our IT people went to work, and by noon we finally had it back up and running, but they were concerned of why that happened. And we do have a switch and a firewall that has reached the end of its life, and they are suspecting that that's the issues. So we have those 2 pieces of equipment on order, and they want to get them. We were hoping the equipment would arrive today, so we could still get it all put together tomorrow, but it's not here yet. So hopefully next week we will get that equipment installed. It will cost about $5,000 for this building to get those computers back up to where they need to be with that equipment. And then the Wi-Fi guys will come in and get the rest of the stuff. So that said, with our Wi-Fi, we will then have a guest Wi-Fi as well as the internal Wi-Fi.
So
that will be.
how do they know the firewall is a problem?
Well, they know that that equipment that's in there has reached the end of its life.
Okay.
So they are not 100% sure that that was the problem we had on Monday, but they are hoping that by replacing this equipment, which we need to do anyway, will help solve that problem.
So, what kind of firewall are they gonna replace it with? I mean, presumably, do we not have a software firewall? on our
Well, now
computers?
you're asking me IT questions that I don't have the answers for, but I've got all of the quotes, they sent me the quotes downstairs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want me to get you more information, I can.
I'm just curious because, I don't know of anybody, maybe the bank, that uses a mechanical firewall. Most people are using a software package, so I don't know why they would feel the need to install one here.
So, well, they know more about it than I do, so, we are using their expertise to guide us in the
Okay.
correct
I'd love to know the answer. It's
We
okay.
have both a software as well as a hardware firewall due to the patient care reports as well as some of the granting things that are involved with the grants that we have as a secure, this is the incident command post currently for the community. So if we need internet, I can get us internet for reaching out to the outside world to get things coming in.
Sure. Now, how about the ambulance district? Does it have a mechanical firewall? See, now I'm asking really hard questions.
I don't know about their hardware down there, but with them carrying the personal identifying health information, is not to use the acronym for Dr. Burns. I think we have to have certain mechanical things as well as the software, so it cannot be hacked.
Okay.
I think we do.
But
I think we do because we have proprietary software that was on our server that we use for database, or pre-hospital care database, and that still has records on it and stuff, so I think we do.
Okay.
I'd like to see us move to more of a Google platform where everything is online and we don't have servers and we don't have that extra cost involved with that. And I brought that up at a meeting before, so we can keep looking at that maybe.
Well, that can kind of segue into what I was gonna say next. I have put out the IT services RFP. That went out on November 5th, and with a deadline of proposals for December 30th. So vendors would have close to 60 days to put together proposals for us. We are still going to consider LCOG. They will not be proposing because they are a government entity. So, but they have sent me a long list of what they do and what their value is. And so when we get the proposals in, we will take a look at the proposals and what they have to offer. And we're anticipating maybe doing some interviews in January and making a decision into January, early February. And then if we do move our IT services over to another vendor, it will be in March, around that time.
So it's a government entity, they can't propose?
Right, they are not a commercial vendor.
So how do you apples and orange? They're-
Well, that's what we will
That's the,
get to when we get to that point. We will say, here we have these proposals from these vendors at this cost. However, LCOG can provide the similar services for this cost. And we'll,
Well, I would just suggest that before we pay for that firewall mechanical device, that we ask some probing questions, because I'm unfamiliar with technology that would be obsolete or at the end of its life now, mechanically, being necessary with all of the new firewall software that's available. So I'm just not sure, how did they get the internet past the firewall?
well, would it be the router that they're replacing? I mean, it's possible.
sounds like
it's
could be
the
a
router.
mechanical piece that.
Yeah, I mean, if they're replacing a router, or a modem, or a router, yeah, I mean, that's part of what that is up there, those are routers, but $5,000 for a new modem and router, that's a lot of money.
And the switch.
And the switch, what's the switch for?
Well, can I get back to you on that?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to know, because this is not something I'm familiar with, that anyone's ever tried to sell me, and I have a business.
The switch connects all the desktops to the network
Okay.
and the server.
Are they all hardwired?
Yes, it's just you plug in each desktop that goes to one router.
So you guys have
The wires, so this comes out, the signal comes out of the router, goes to the switch and blasts it out to the units.
to the computer.
Firewall, I don't know. Yes.
Right, so, sounds like he has a hardwired system. Do you also have Wi-Fi in the building?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are two different things, but if your computers are hardwired and you also have Wi-Fi, you wouldn't need a firewall on the Wi-Fi side so that you couldn't get into the stuff that's hardwired. It's a two-way street there, so I'd be interested in knowing.
Yeah, the LCOG IT technician that's working on this is going to be here Monday at noon. He's going to give a talk on cybersecurity.
Oh, perfect.
Well, if you're there, you can.
I plan to be here. No, I actually have it on my calendar.
Okay, yeah, he'll be there. He's the one that's
Okay.
working on all this.
All right.
You can grab him.
Okay, perfect.
So moving on in my report, that the last month, Director Spade asked me to look into the SDAO board practices assessment and at what point in time we could actually get scheduled for this. And last year when they started this program, there was quite a large response, and they only have 25 slots available each year. So right now, the carryover from last year was 25 slots, so we're in the number 26 position. So we'll just wait and see. Director Murphy requested that I look into, or that I contact SDAO regarding the ADA compliant websites. I did reach out to SDAO, and they sent me a link to a company that they are partnering with. They said that there's a push to get websites compliant with ADA, but they have not seen anything in Oregon on the government side as of yet. So I've sent this link to our webmaster, and he's looking into it. There seems to be a few at no cost options for us to try in our website. And after we wrap up the RFP for IT services, I am planning on working on sending out an RFP for banking services. That hasn't been done for many years, and it's just a best practice that I think we should do every 3 to 5 years to see what rates are out there. And after this meeting, we are going to work on resetting the onboard over to your district emails. It seems like everyone is working pretty well with their district emails, so we will be sending you a password that we would like for you to use, because once we get that once it gets sent to your new email, it will request a password, and we would like to keep records of those passwords in case it gets lost. We can still get you onto your onboard. So we'll be working with you on that. And then I did put some information in my report at the end about the clarification on the authority board appointing a board member in the absence of a board member. And the IGA does state that that was what was agreed upon in the IGA. And the attorney responded that the intergovernmental entity, such as the authority, is different from a district board or a city council. And I think you had some information on that earlier today.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much is that those rules don't apply to the authority. The boards can decide what a quorum is, what the necessary number of members are, and then replace as they wish. So it's may, in the IGA it says it may replace, so again, it's up to the board president to decide to do that.
I think one of the issues that I still see is in the note, it says the attorney said to maintain or to create a quorum. It would be possible in WLFEA to have 2 board members from one, outvote the one board member from the other, and that becomes the deal. And I think what we were trying to do was be able to have 2 members from each.
Correct.
To make sure that there was an equal vote. So if we can do that, and we can still do that. So we could make sure there's 4 members.
All the time.
So that's my director picks it up on your state tonight. I think that's how it should work. Yes. Or that's what the board wants.
Right.
So would you put a definition into the agreement that a quorum under this entity is 4 members?
Yeah, we could do that.
Because then you would be guaranteed that you have to have 4. You never do read the
Right.
2 against 1 thing. And so if you put a definition of quorum into the language.
Yeah, that's good.
Didn't we do that already?
We did specify what the quorum was.
Maybe we talked about it.
We just said, we assumed there would always be 4 people.
Okay.
And then the last thing I had was I put a couple flyers in your board packets. We're gonna be having 2 Christmas parties. There will be one on Friday, December 13th for the Western Lake Fire and EMS employees and board and families. And it will be a potluck lunch at 12 o'clock and a white elephant gift exchange. And then the following day, on Saturday, December 14th, from 1 o'clock to, or I should say 1300 to 1600, there will be a combined association, SVFR and Western Lane Ambulance joint Christmas party for all employees, volunteers, board members, and families. And Santa will be arriving at 1400 hours. And we will be providing cider, juice, cocoa, and if desired, anybody can bring a finger food snack or dessert. So it should be real fun. We're hoping to have presents for the kids, and everyone is welcome to join us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Do you want to talk about, anybody want to talk about the correspondence at all? I mean, that was the,
I'm sorry.
about the correspondence. There's the thank you in there for some work that Jerry Ward did.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Ward, he's just an exceptional volunteer. I go around and look at the stations and see what kind of shape they're in, and his station is spotless. And it's just, this just gave me another opportunity to recognize, his efforts. This came from a citizen. He didn't know that this was going to happen at all, but I think it's just important to recognize the volunteers when they do something fantastic, because we tend to pick on them sometimes. But no, Jerry is he's an officer, one of our officers, and this is exactly what I expect that he would do. So it was a nice letter.
Nice. Okay, and we're opportunity for directors to comment on any topics not on the agenda. Anybody have anything they'd like to say? Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll do that. Future agenda is December 19th, or the next meeting. The joint meeting would be December 19th at 6 o'clock. So I think we moved that up a little bit because of the day after Christmas. And if nobody has anything else, we're going to adjourn to executive session. Sam?
Motion for adjourn.
I think we can just do it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there a second? Let's do it.
I'll make a second.
First and a second.
Right.
We're gonna do it, so we're gonna adjourn.